This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Okay, we've reached the final stage of Deshaun Watson's return from his shoulder injury. This thing is officially case closed, over with. He is not just cleared to return, he's cleared to return to contact, and the Browns have announced that Deshaun Watson will play. And by announcing Deshaun Watson, you're basically saying the Browns are playing starters week 3 of the preseason. Now, I have my questions about this because that week 3 preseason game was at such a weird time. 10 p.m. Eastern against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, why is it 10 p.m. Eastern? For a number of reasons. One, the Seattle Seahawks get to choose the kickoff time for home playoff games, same as the Browns, right? When the Browns play a home preseason game, they pick the time. That's why the Browns have played at 4:30 for the last 2 preseason games. When the Seahawks pick it, they pick 7. Now, I don't know if this has something to do with the Seattle Sounders, their MLS team, but I do know that those two teams share a venue, and I believe that the Sounders, they actually get a pretty good crowd in there, so they're not an insignificant tenant where the Seahawks will be like, well, you're going to do whatever we want you to do. No, the Seahawks want to make that money off the Sounders, so if the Sounders need the field that day, they're going to have the field, and the Seahawks will have their preseason game later after that. So it's one of those situations where I don't know if it's the Sounders that's forcing them to move this back here, or if the Seahawks are just like, nah, we want to have it at 7. We want to have our last preseason game be at night in front of our fans, maybe do a kids night, get people down there, do that stuff. Maybe it's what they want to do. And because that's what they want to do, the Browns play at 10 o'clock at night, Eastern time, because they don't care about what time we watch that game East Coast. And fair enough. If the Browns wanted to play, well, there's no inconvenient time for if the Browns wanted to play this game in Cleveland at noon, I guess they'd be well within their rights to do it next year. And Seahawks fans will have the same complaint. Why are we playing in the morning? But my complaints about the time of this kickoff, or my explanation about the time of this kickoff aside, the Browns will play at 10 o'clock at night, and you should stay up because this is going to be your preview of the 2024 Browns. Deshaun Watson will be out there. Probably going to see Jerry Jeudy. If you're going to see Amari Cooper, this is when you're going to see him in the preseason. That's something to take note of and pay attention to. Now, when I say this Deshaun Watson thing is finally over, I mean the shoulder injury that he's been trying to come back from since December. You could argue he's been trying to come back from a shoulder injury since September, and it wouldn't be a wrong argument. But the shoulder saga with Deshaun Watson is over. The zip gate is done. We are no longer evaluating Deshaun Watson as an injured quarterback. We're no longer evaluating Deshaun Watson with the expectations of a dude who's injured. And honestly, once the season starts, we're not going to be looking at Deshaun Watson or judging Deshaun Watson through the lens of a guy coming back from injury, because all things come in make me feel like he's been back from this injury since the start of camp. Can't say he's coming back from an injury. He's been practicing all summer and spring. He did full go at mini camps. He ain't coming back from that injury. He's back. He's been back from that injury. So what are the expectations for Deshaun? Now that we know that he's entering this season with a presumptive, and I'm saying this August 13th, a presumptive bill of health. He's healthy. He has the right offensive coordinator who has experience with guys like him. He has a lot of wide receiver options, right? You know, the Browns have moved in Amari Cooper around the time that they got Deshaun Watson, a little bit before they got Deshaun Watson. They also brought in Jerry Jeudy. They brought in Elijah Moore. I mean, that's 3 wide receivers they brought in within the last 3 years with the idea that they're going to put them around you. David Njoku as well. It's not the most loaded wide receiver core in the world, but you know the Browns are always working on it. They almost traded Amari Cooper for Brandon Ayuk just to get a little bit better. That's how committed they are to getting better at wide receiver. If you're Deshaun Watson, you got to reward that commitment. You got to play well. Is there a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson? Absolutely. This is the most pressured season of Deshaun Watson's life. Like, I don't think he's ever gone into a season where there would be more pressure for him. And I know a lot of people who are rooting for Deshaun Watson don't like it when somebody says that, because I know a lot of people who act in bad faith about Deshaun Watson tend to say that as an excuse to rip shit on him the first time he makes a mistake. That is not my intention with saying this. My intention is only to reflect the actual truth of the situation, which is how he plays in this season, keyword, not in one game or a quarter. Y'all heard that, right? In this season, 17 games plus postseason, will determine how people view him going forward. Right? I argue all the time. It is kind of silly to judge Deshaun Watson by some of the stats he's accumulated in his 12 games as the Cleveland Browns, because that sample is unprecedented. And it's unprecedented, and it's not a good sample to pull stats from. Like, you could pull all the bad advanced numbers from Deshaun Watson's 12 games in Cleveland, and it doesn't surprise me that you could pull these bad numbers, because anybody in the circumstances that Deshaun Watson has been in would probably have a bad number or two in that sample, if not a lot of bad numbers in that sample. If somebody were coming off a suspension and a 700-day layoff between games, and they played 6 games, I bet there would be some bad stats in there. And if somebody played 2 games, got injured, played 2 more games, got injured again, I promise you the sample wouldn't be pretty, at least from a statistic standpoint. This wouldn't be enough. And here's how I know that the argument is flawed. Because let's say it was the total opposite situation. Let's say that Deshaun Watson played 12 games, but put up some good numbers in like 5 of them. And the 5 games that he played extremely well in, like he put 400 yards up, 5 touchdowns, all that shit, made it so that he has some crazy statistical advanced numbers. A lot of the people arguing and touting the advanced numbers as proof that he's bad and will never be good would be sitting here and sounding like me saying, hey, dog, that's a really bad sample to pull from. Like, it's not necessarily a clean sample. And, you know, if I were in that situation and the Browns and Deshaun Watson was throwing up 100 plus yards, I would be warning you to, hey, don't get too excited. We still got to see him do this 8 games in a row. That's where I stand. I need a clean sample from Deshaun Watson. So understand, when I say these things about Deshaun Watson, I am not coming from a place of bad faith. I feel like if you watch me in good faith routinely, you would know that I've been pretty fair to Deshaun Watson on this. I've been pretty fair to Deshaun Watson for the last 2 years. And I'm not getting close to being unfair on him. But what would become fair if he underwhelms this year or gets injured or is in and out the lineup a ton this year is that glass half full on him starts to get emptier. Because that's what he's shown, if that is the case this year. So it's no hyperbole. This is the most important year of Deshaun Watson's professional career. Not just because of what we talked about, not just about the personal reputation being on the line. That's not the only reason this is Deshaun Watson's most important season of his career. This is a damn good chance to win a Super Bowl. Like, you got the roster that not a lot of quarterbacks who are pretty damn good in their career get to get to this. Like, could you imagine if this were the roster that Cam Newton took to the Super Bowl in 2011? Like, I bet Cam look at this roster like, damn, I wish I had that. This is not an opportunity that's going to come around a lot for Deshaun Watson. Now, the Browns roster may always be pretty good, but this good, it ain't going to be this good every year. It's impossible for the roster to be this good every year. You only have a limited amount of time where you're going to have this roster be this good. Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam and everybody in charge, Steve Podesta, are trying their best to make sure we can hold this together as long as possible. And maybe they can squeeze an extra year out of this. Maybe. But the reality is, what you know that you have is this year. And what you feel like you have, because you've stated this on your podcast, if you're Deshaun Watson, you feel like you have a Super Bowl quality roster. You feel like you got a Super Bowl quality coach. You feel like you got a Super Bowl quality staff. You feel like you got a Super Bowl quality locker room. The stars feel like they're aligning for Deshaun Watson from a roster and support standpoint in a way that they never did in Houston. This is an opportunity for Deshaun Watson to take advantage of. If Deshaun Watson is the type of quarterback that he believes himself to be, as he's the type of quarterback that people talked about him being while he was in Houston, well, he has to bring the Browns to that point. It's not going to be easy. I don't think Deshaun Watson can sit here and play like Derek Carr and get to the conference championship game. He's going to have to be Deshaun Watson for the Browns to do that. But that's why this season there's so much pressure on Deshaun Watson. He's got to live up to it. I don't think pressure being on somebody, by the way, is an inherently bad thing. I think that's also another thing that we get caught up into believing, is that me saying that there's pressure on Deshaun Watson is like me saying Deshaun Watson's on the hot seat. He's going to get fired this year if he hasn't played well or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Deshaun Watson got a lot of pressure on him. There's an expectation that he performs well. There's an expectation that he grows in some levels to stay healthy. There's an expectation that this team does more than be fun and make the playoffs. There's real expectations here with this team. There are players on this team who aren't 22, 23, 24. Like, the last time we had these hopes about the Cleveland Browns was probably 2020. David Njoku was in his third year. So was Myles Garrett. It was a different world there. Those dudes thought that they would get back to that and be there forever. Now these dudes are close to 30 and realizing, hey, we got a chance to do something special here, and we ain't going to have many more of those. This might be it. This is a locker room that is operating with a sense of urgency. These are players who are old enough to understand that they are operating with a sense of urgency. Deshaun Watson has to be at that point. He's the same age as these guys. Same draft as Myles Garrett. This is what I mean by there's pressure on Deshaun Watson. This is what I mean by this being the most important season in Deshaun Watson's career, especially NFL career. Hell, even college. This is what I mean by that. And that's why, to bring this all the way back to the beginning, I think it's good that he's playing in the preseason. I know some people are worried. Oh, what if he gets hit? What if he gets hurt? The offensive line doesn't look good. Well, him playing in the third preseason game tells me they think Jed's going to be back, right? So that's good too. They wouldn't put Deshaun out there. They didn't think Jed would be out there. They're not going to throw him behind like James Hudson or something like that. Even if they did, they would find a way to protect him. But I need Deshaun to be out there because you know what I don't want to be talking about at like 8 o'clock on a Sunday in September? Well, you know, Deshaun Watson is still kind of shaking off the rust from that. I don't want to be there. I want to hear that, man. Like, it starts in September. He needs to be ready week 1. We can't be sitting here talking about how he's knocking off rust. We can't be sitting here talking about how he's learning a new offense. The fact is, the offense is getting adjusted to make him more comfortable. Fact is, he got wide receivers galore. He's got one of the best rosters in football. The fact is that this is his year to shine. He doesn't have to win the MVP. He doesn't have to throw for 5,000 yards. He doesn't have to do anything crazy like that. But he does have to feel like Deshaun Watson. I think he did it in that Baltimore game. He felt like Deshaun Watson in that Baltimore game for a half. Can he do it for a whole season? That's what we need to see. That's my thoughts on this whole thing. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.